So live on YouTube.
Going live.
People will think, oh, you've got no budget on this programme, but actually, just wait until Boris Johnson's closed down the BBC. And this is what the Super League show looked like.
So we announced the full team, but when it ran out,
Yeah,
it was only the reserves.
Just stick to darts, Mark Wilson. He's at the darts.
Yeah, he's become famous now.
I know. He's on the Twitter, wasn't he?
He was commentating on the historic moment of Fallon
Sherrock of darts fame.
And he's nearly as famous as she is.
I know. Did that video. Him shouting. I know it was Rod Sunday talking about the glass ceiling, wasn't it?
Yes.
And
stick to darts, Rod Sunday.
Yeah. Scully's not well. Get well soon, Scully. Well,
yes, he's on the mend. He would be watching, but we're not on CFAX.
No, which he's dead now, isn't it? Which is a shame.
And you're wearing a sort of Christmas jumper.
Yeah, I mean, I could have bought a Wakefield one, but they cost 30 quid or something. And
they'd be half price on Boxing Day.
Well, this is what I got this one last year on eBay for about £5, so it'll do. No. We haven't done the show for a few weeks because we've been all over the place.
Well, the season's sort of finished.
It has.
We sort of had a game that said 2019 is over. But the good news is the 2020 season starts in 3 days' time.
Are you excited?
Well, I think we need to start where we need to start, and there is a shadow across the
game.
Yeah,
we've got lots of sad things to talk about, right?
And whilst there is a level of excitement that the new season is on its way, and we can debate whether it's starting too early or not, we could debate the value or otherwise of playing on a Boxing Day, except that 12,000 people will be at Headingley on Thursday, and if the public wants it, then we are beholden to provide them. But I just think there are bigger issues at the moment that probably don't even have anything to do with rugby league per se, and I think we're all still numb from the news that Rob Burrow has been diagnosed with MND. I think the response of the what has been called the rugby league family, of which I still think we haven't quite ever defined what that actually means, has been sensational. That people from around the rugby league world, and that includes Australia in particular, have donated to the fund that was set up to a level that I think we have to commend everybody. I think there's still a debate to be had about how we properly commemorate Rob's career, and how we can in perpetuity remember his fantastic exploits, and I think the fact that he, as much as any player in the modern era, epitomises this sport and the qualities of it, and that's why it shocked so many people. I think those of us that are privileged enough to have met him and watched his career and interviewed him, shaken his hand, watched his exploits, would say that it's rolled out, isn't it, every time, but there barely is a nicer person in the sport than Rob. Always gave of himself on the field and off it, so that's why we're doubly shocked. I think the time he spent with Doddy Weir has been very important to him, and that's given him some pointers as to how he can manage the future. And I think it's more than money. I think money is very important. I think we need Rob to appreciate that Lindsay and his lovely young family won't want for anything, and he can concentrate on as much as he can on managing this horrible disease he's been diagnosed with, and that's very important. But I think there's something wider than that. I'd love that. There's a feeling of helplessness for all of us because we know we can't offset the.
Which is why I probably give money, because it's something you can do, isn't it?
But I think we want maybe a research facility in Rob's name. We want to be looking at naming it something after him that sums up his contribution to the sport. And conversation I had with Mr. Schofield on Saturday morning about how do you commemorate the exploits of somebody like Rob, and I think there is a case for saying that the Super League trophy should be named after him. He's a player that belongs to the modern era. He's won the Super League numerous occasions. He's scored arguably one of the greatest tries ever seen at the venue of the Super League Grand Final. I would love him to be presenting the Super League trophy for as long as he can, which hopefully is a long time. And I think that we've seen the donations of people from rugby league towns throughout the north of England that would indicate that he's something a little bit special, that he relates to fans even whose hearts he's broken by his performances. So people from St Helens and Wigan have been right at the Warrington have been at the forefront of donating, as indeed Hull and Huddersfield and everybody else has as well. But I think that's the measure of the man, that he transcends the club that he played for. And there are certain players that you associate with a club and who would perhaps appeal only to the supporters or mainly to the supporters of that club. I think Rob is something different. He obviously has cut through all that, and that's why I'd like to see the League Leaders Shield or the Super League trophy actually named after him. And that's the kind of discussion that I think once the shock has worn off and it becomes more about how do we keep his name in perpetuity, it becomes more important.
That try, I was doing my other job at William Hill in the studio on that night, because I remember it vividly. I think pretty much at the same time it must have happened. There was a 9-darter in Ireland at the exact same time. He made that break. And we were just going mad. The people on Racing Radio next door had to come in and see what we were going mad at. Because we were watching TV, and it's an amazing moment. And I'd have the words. I'm not the person to come up with those words. There was something in your tweet on last week, and
I swore.
You did?
But I felt it was appropriate.
It was when you said the fact, you know more about the history of Leeds than most people, the fact that he is the greatest number 7.
It's a difficult judgment to make, and we've
yes,
said it many occasions. Yes. It's hard to compare, but I think there are only 3 players who've worn the number 7 shirt who would lay claim to being the very best, and Jeff Stevenson would be the first. I think Barry Seaborn would be the second, and Rob would be the third. But then you factor in, how do you compare the eras? You look at the number of games that they've played, the number of medals that they've won with the team, and the number of individual honours that they've won, and Rob is head and shoulders above anybody else who's worn that number 7 shirt. So I genuinely believe he is the greatest player to wear that shirt for that club. I think his teammates would tell you something similar, that probably the bravest. There has to be an acknowledgement and a debate at some point about the number of knocks he's taken to the head. Because I think you only start thinking about these things when you get tragic news like this, and I don't think there's a causal link between head knocks and MND, but I think that it needs to be part of this research process into helping players down the line, that if there is any kind of, even if it's a gene that you have within you that has been triggered by knocks to the head in rugby league, part of this research that I would love to be done in his name, and as you mentioned, Dodie's got a foundation. There's talk of a half and half game with Rob picking his rugby league legends and Dodie picking his rugby union legends. Money going into a foundation for research into this horrible disease. That would be fantastic for me. And I think, when you're a sportsman, you've got that ultimate competitive spirit about you. I think, legacy is more important than money.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you confer legacy on somebody, but I think if you name something valuable and meaningful and where the next generation can get a benefit of after someone like Rob, then I think we're doing him a service. But yeah, obviously this was going to dominate the early part of whatever we do this evening, but we're all struggling to find the right words.
And he is one of those players who probably hasn't been, I think, given the credit to raise but Leeds missing more than I think people have ever said, because he doesn't have the profile of some of the other players who've retired. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way or anything, because obviously he's a great player and won so many trophies, and Leeds wouldn't have won a percentage of the things they won if he wasn't in that squad.
It's funny because there's something in League Express today about his top 5 moments, which I spoke to Martin Sadler about. We were trying to pick 5 that would be, you know, the most meaningful, which is almost impossible when you've played over 400 odd games, and then you start forgetting the brilliant tries he scored in games that weren't finals. But when you think that he scored Leeds' best try in the 2005 World Club Challenge, which was, for those that were there, 37,000 at Ellen Road, virtual sellout against Canterbury, which included a certain Sonny Bill Williams, first time Leeds had been officially crowned as world champions. You look at 2 grand finals that he got the Harry Sunderland trophy, one of which he was a unanimous man of the match, but came off the bench. When you look at the fact that his last competitive game was winning a grand final, and that the Challenge Cup, which was the holy grail of that great Leeds team, which could win grand finals but couldn't win Challenge Cup finals, was Rob's kick against Castleford that Danny Maguire pouched, that effectively put them on the path to winning that game, which was the missing piece of the jigsaw for every single key event that has happened to this golden generation. Rob has been at the heart of. But I think more than that, his story, acknowledged by somebody like Brian McDermott, throughout his career he's been told he can't do things. And Brian will be the first to acknowledge that he thought Rob's career had come to an end, and he didn't really want to pick him as a scrum half. He was going to pick him as an impact hooker off the bench. Well, you know, what did Rob do when he came off the bench as an impact hooker? He became the best impact hooker you could be off the bench that won trophies. So I think you're right in the sense that people would list maybe others above him, but I don't think you can talk about this era without him being literally and metaphorically in the absolute middle of it.
Mary makes the point here. No, we'll pick it up. She says, I hope everyone is also thinking of all those others suffering from MND. And I understand the point Mary's trying to make. And it's unfortunate. I was saying this before we came on air. It's a strange one, isn't it? Because as a professional sportsman, he's obviously had a great life and a great job. And there'll be far more people out there who don't have the same, or haven't had the same advantage in terms of a career as Rob's had. The best thing that can come of anything like this is the fact that someone famous suffers from something, and that means there are benefits for more people in the future because people are made more aware of it. And
I think awareness is the key word there. That, you know, when we watched Sports Personality only the week before, which again adds to the irony of it, and Doddy Weir comes on and talks about what he's going through, and we all then suddenly put MND further up the scale of things that we are aware of, and that if somebody then approaches you to donate to something, you think, oh yeah, that's the big Scottish rugby player in the tartan suit, and I listened to what he had to say, and it was very important, and I'd like to get involved in that, because yes, I think Mary's right. Everybody who suffers from anything is a cause that we as human beings should try and support if we can. But I just think somebody who is 37 and who in all of their professional career has been fit to be then struck down, I think there is a chord being struck there that you can raise the awareness of the disease and how we combat it, and you know, I would like to think that more people will now be donating to, you know, we talk about cancer, whereas at the moment the adverts for cancer charities are please donate because research is helping us to conquer this disease. It's not curing it, but it's helping us to go down the road of A, understanding it, and then B, curing it. Well, if we can do the same with MND through somebody like Rob suffering from it, then yes, it is vitally important that we do what we can to realise that it's not just about giving money, it's about making people aware of it can strike anyone at any time.
Brief moment of levity, because we've still got more something
Yes.
to talk about. I do hope none of all the advice he's getting from Doddy Weir, it's not fashion advice, because that seems to shock him. But they were in Rhino's colours, which I noticed.
I think the again, you know, being a little bit around the club this last week, and obviously seeing Rob briefly when it was announced, what came across was that meeting with Doddy was more important at the moment than anything else. That to talk to somebody who is going through what you are likely to be going through, to point out some signposts to you, to give you some advice on what to expect, how to cope with it, some obstacles that you probably hadn't thought of, to delay things like surgery if you can until it's absolutely all of that. I think has been more helpful, those 2 hours that they spent together. I think the other thing is the way it was announced, the humanity of his interview with Tanya, the unexpected hug from Kevin Sinfield, who I have to say, the last couple of months on here we've questioned, is Kevin doing a decent job as director of rugby with England, and what's going to happen with Leeds this year. I think he has gone above and beyond, even being a friend. In the way that he's tried to help, it was he that arranged the meeting with Doddy. It was he that drove Rob to Carlisle where the meeting was. It's he that's been speaking on behalf of Rob. It was he that was stood off set that came on, and he's barely left his side. And I think that from a pure humanity point of view, never mind whether the place of work is important or not, that Kevin Sinfield, who is representative of that group of players and the club, has gone above and beyond, and I think his example is something that I think will help those of us that would like to do more, and hopefully we'll try and do stuff, and there will be things to announce in the not too distant future, events for Rob, but they're all really being driven by that genuine bond between guys that to be fair, it's all been for our entertainment.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we feel that we want to do something. We want to do something meaningful other than just give money. Giving money is fantastic. With gift aid for the fund to be up to close on £200,000 is astonishing, absolutely unbelievable. But I think there's a lot of people out there that want to do more.
Mark says, when you were talking about him coming off the bench becoming an impact player, was shouting at that time for Saints to sign him. I think that's one of the key factors in this. He's a player every club would have wanted to have in their squad.
Yeah.
If you want to say anything more about Rob Burrow, feel free to share it on Facebook or YouTube. We're live until whenever we bother to finish that.
And a different set.
Yeah, we've moved. People ask where are we in the headmaster's office. We're just downstairs. It's warmer.
Yes. What you can't see is the very kind gift of shortbread.
Yes.
That we've been sent.
From Sid.
Thank you, Sid.
Pure butter shortbread Scotty dogs.
And we now know Sid's real name, but we're not going to divulge that. That is an official secret.
No, I'll date till October. That's all. Enjoy those over Christmas.
And mince pies.
Yeah, and a Jaffa cake.
And the 4020 annual.
Which is out now, yes, which you can actually win if you listen to the podcast. Because I went to Blackpool the other week, did a recce for the Summer Bash, which I don't think I'm going to next year. I bought this book, Who's Who in Rugby League, and someone in this book you'll be able to win a prize of the annual from if you can work out who it is. Not though, however, this person who's not here today. He enjoys squash, tennis, darts, cricket and table tennis, all of which he plays with the same determination as his rugby.
I think he wrote that.
Yeah.
He doesn't like cricket.
Like I said before, he doesn't
He's
like,
not
like the corky.
squash.
I don't like the corky ball. No.
Squash? That was his colleague, Mr. Hamley.
We should have done the competition guess his weight, but
that's wrong.
A bit harsh. He'll be back next year.
He was never that much when he was wet.
Turn the hubcap into a Rob Burrow trophy like the Winfield Cup type thing, says claim all 2 of 9.
Absolutely.
Well, that would actually
Stuff
give it
like
meaning, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Because as we said before, we need a way of finding meaning for it.
And I also think, getting Rob to present it would give it added meaning. But, that's a debate that we should be having now as a sport and instituting that, and not waiting a year or putting it through a committee or...
Too late.
Yes. Let's do it. Start a campaign.
Don't forget Tiddlywink, says Martin. Also doesn't say anything about plasticine class in this book as well. Some great names in this book. Some who completely lost the time and some who remain figures like Mal Meninga. What happened to him?
Yeah, he had potential in 83, 84.
Club St Helens.
He looked like he could be something.
The Queensland policeman has taken a leave of absence to play in England.
So did Wayne Bennett.
Yeah.
What happened to him?
Mick Morgan.
Mick Morgan. Was he playing for Carlisle in those days?
He's the coach, I think, at this point. Oh, he's moved to Oldham now. He's a regular auctioneer with the Sunday Mirror Rugby League Roadshow. I think it's something we said we should bring back, but the Sunday Mirror doesn't. Oh no, the Sunday Mirror does exist. It's news of the world. We were talking about Frank Boff before we came on. It's complicated.
Don't go.
No. Hello to Alan, listening from Canada. Before we move on, I don't know how to bring up these things because a few weeks ago, we haven't been here for 3 weeks, we had the extremely sad news again of the passing of Natalie Harrowell from Featherstone Rovers in England.
Mm-hmm.
Young child, not even 30. You can't comprehend these things. There's nothing you can say. Extremely sad news. And again, the comments people make after anything like this happens gives you a clue as to how well regarded a person was. And the people who knew her best have said everything that needs to be said.
I think it's why we need Rugby League Cares. It's why the Rugby League Benevolent Fund do great work. And I think, again, what we shouldn't forget is that they need support as well. And what they offer to grieving families, to those who are left behind in such tragic circumstances, we need to support it. And yeah, again, I think came as a huge shock to the women's game. As you rightly say, some top exponents of the women's sport could not have spoken any more highly of Natalie's contribution. Never a great time for something like this to happen, but it made even more poignant this time of year. And yes, what we have limited resources as a game, but we have to spread them to those who need.
I think some of the reporting in the paper today was unnecessary. I'll just say that.
You just did.
Yeah. But that's,
I agree.
if you've read it, you've read it. If you haven't, you haven't. It is what it is. So 2019 is nearly over.
Yes.
As you say, the rugby league season is nearly done, but the 4020 annual is out. So yeah, Jackson Hastings.
84 pages.
Wow, that's in some rugby league publications you might get 84 pages all month. Packed full of articles and stories on many and various things around the world of rugby league, as there always is.
Some long reads.
Including one very long one.
10,000 words.
I understand that the author George Clark has had a bit of stick on social media from people about his investigation into what's happened at the Bradford Bulls. And as I said on social media last week, the people who attacked the messenger are as bad as those who put the club in the mess it is in the first place. Because I've seen people say, "Oh, we don't want an inquiry because what good is it going to do? We may as well just not bother with." No, I'm not going to. I was going to use an example of something.
I think the important thing is making sure you don't make the same mistakes twice, or 3 times, or in Bradford's case 4. I think you also need to hold people to account if they should be held to account. But what we've tried to do is a long form inquiry that we think the game should undertake. At the end of it, there are questions that have been asked of the governing body, which they've answered quite a few of them. That it's left to the reader to decide whether the answers are adequate or not. But I think that George has gathered enough evidence, having spoken to a hell of a lot of the people who are involved, to warrant there to be a formal investigation. What's not been done before, and a lot of people have written some very good stuff about the Bradford situation, is consolidate into one investigative piece. We felt there was a need to do it. This annual gives us the chance to do it. It's not the only thing that's in there by any means, but it is a fireside read when you've watched the Queen's speech, which I know we all do.
In the morning, apparently. Who knew?
Not a bit of politics.
No, lots of pictures and everything.
Well, that's about Great Britain. Another long read about what do we want out of Great Britain, which I noticed that Jonathan Davis has commented on. That's something he's still passionate about. Doesn't want to lose it.
Well,
and that's how we turned it around. How from the early 70s to the early 90s, there were similar issues with what did we want Great Britain to be, and all of a sudden We found a way of resurrecting it.
Nothing changes. As we said the last time we did this programme, we'll be sat here in 12 months' time saying exactly the same things about what's happened because nothing will have changed.
There's a fiendishly difficult quiz.
And there's a feature on some Rugby, which is always good.
Yes.
Oh, I think I know the answer to number 19. Because I was going to write a quiz book and I never got around to it because, as with everything in my life, I decided I'm going to do something and don't do it. And I did research how many rugby league players have been on This Is Your Life, because you can find a full list of people who run there. I'm surprised that programme's not come back actually, because it's the kind of thing that is cheap telly.
And the answers are in there as well.
Which is always
Which is handy, because when you get halfway through and go, I can't do this, you can look up a couple of the answers.
77 3/4 yard penalty.
Mm.
What are you kicking from there? It's really windy.
So you're intrigued already.
Yeah.
Mr. Kellner's Almanac, which goes over 2 pages, is definitely worth reading. And hopefully there's plenty in there to keep you amused till the new year and the season 2020 properly starts.
If I hadn't been forced to listen to Martin Kellner as a kid, I probably wouldn't be sat here. January, Super League 2020 is launching a blaze of publicity comprising a 3-minute interview on TalkSport 2 and half a page in the Northern edition of the Daily Mirror. We used to be on TalkSport 2. We've got a programme. Famous and everything. We're going to get a new TV programme. It's going to be a new Rugby League TV programme.
30 minutes a week.
Wow. We don't
To
know where
promote the personalities of Super League.
Right, because we've tried that and we haven't worked so far because everyone still has heard of Ellery Hanley and Jonathan Davis.
I think the important thing about it is that we, the game, are paying the production costs. So I think there has been an acknowledgement by the Super League clubs that we can't wait for somebody else to do it. We're going to have to do it ourselves. I wouldn't be at all surprised that it ended up on Sky every week to supplement their match footage.
Well, they need.
And they need a magazine, and they're not going to pay for magazine programmes anymore. They lost Boots and All and Back Chat in the cuts that every sport lost their magazine programme. So I think if you present them with a very professional half hour of television, building up the personalities on a week by week basis, then I think they would take that. So well done to the Super League chairman for diverting resource to facilitate that. And it's what we've said all through the year that production costs for most sports that are seen on certainly free-to-air television are paid for by those sports, and this is our first toe in the water to do that, so we need to do it.
Well, our dear close friend of the Rugby Football League, Barry Hearn, has his darts magazine programme on Sky every month, and I know that Matchroom produced that, so...
Yeah. So yes,
and then you can syndicate it out to the world. You can it on YouTube,
absolutely,
whatever you want.
And it might be the kind of thing that does appeal to Amazon Prime, and if Toronto's games do ultimately get televised.
Oh, you mentioned Toronto now. It's going to...
Sorry, Sonny Bill.
Sid's going to want these biscuits back.
But Sonny Bill is,
well, no, unfortunately,
one of the
now,
stars we're going to build it around. Then.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Sonny Bill, he's all right in building him up as this star, but he's cocked up our chance of making any money from China now, hasn't he?
Well, they're not going to send a
Because he's
team.
actually got a conscience.
They're not going to send a team to the World Nines now, are they?
Him and Mesut Ozil, he's been shamefully hung out to dry by Arsenal.
Well,
but there you go.
But I think the concept of a half-an-hour programme that is based predominantly around the players, and it's maybe not going to see lots of repeats of the week's action, or we're not going to be talking about the games that have gone and the games that are coming up. I think it is going to be, let's meet whoever.
I wonder who those people are going to be, because...
Let's talk to Jackson Hastings on his new career at Wigan. Whatever it might be, I think if we stick to building up the players, suddenly people will have heard of Tommy Makinson outside of just the rugby league people, and he deserves that wider stage.
Then they might end up on Strictly or Dance on Ice or The Masked Singer or something.
But isn't that what we want?
Yeah. And the people got very upset about sports personality last week, and as I tweeted last week, it's not what you think it is anymore. No. Don't watch it. It's not what you want.
We got the commensurate amount of time
everyone gets
with every other large minority sport. There were some that didn't get any. I didn't see any speedway on there, did you? No stock car racing. But we had the same as horse racing, so
lots of people interested in horse racing. Hasn't been any for the last 2 days. Actually, have time off.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, we don't. Rugby league obviously goes on forever, but Tim says, yeah, it's the fan on Fox League. I don't watch Fox League. I don't have the NRL.
That's Andrew Voss, isn't it, in his programme where he interviews people.
As long as it's not Bo Ryan being...
No, it's Andrew Voss and his folding chair.
Got a bigger budget than we are. It'll be interesting to see what happens. They obviously are employing a professional production company who has a track record with documentaries, because we've seen the Leeds United one and the Leeds Rhinos one. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do with a weekly regular programme, because as we know, we're filling 30 minutes every week. You've got to have content, good content. It will be... Will it necessarily bring more people in? Who knows? It's worth giving it a go.
Absolutely.
I think Bob, who's listening to us today, while cycling, hello Bob, in his house, that is.
Okay. Is he part of the peloton?
Well, I assume so. I think he got it for Christmas. I mentioned this last week on social media. This is things I've said on social media and people have reacted to. And I said, you have to do it properly, because too many times we do it on the cheap. We'll come to in a minute. And he said, someone not normal presented, and I said completely agree. And that, maybe I went a bit too far then, but it needs to be someone professional and someone who has credibility.
A really good broadcaster. But I think the other thing about it as well is that we saw with the Adam Hills documentary, which even though it was on at 11:30 at night on a minority channel on Channel 4, that if you get the content right, it resonates beyond the programme, and it wasn't so much about Warrington per se winning the World Club Challenge, which was the subtext underneath it. It was you were captivated by the stories of the people who played PDRL. I think we both said, I know speaking to Mark when he was travelling down to be famous commentating on the darts, that we probably didn't capitalise on that enough after it had been on. That was a very good time for maybe even the governing body to come out and say what the future season looked like for PDRL. If this had been a World Club Challenge game, that it was built up with Warrington playing South, is that now going to become part of the regular season? We had festivals last year moving away from fixtures. What's the plan for? I think we could have. It's the follow up as much as the programme. Watch the programme if you haven't seen it. It's still on I4 or whatever. What's it called?
All four. I don't know.
If you haven't seen it over the festive period, do watch it. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. But that is taking rugby league to a different audience with a really professionally produced hour-long documentary, of which at the end of it you go, do you know this rugby league sport must be something a bit special because it's prepared to be all-inclusive in the truest sense of the word, and for all of the fact that we like to think we constructively criticise during the course of a year, we've always paid credit where it's due, and we need to do more of that. And I hope this 30-minute programme is along the lines of building up the personalities in the sport that we had when Adam did his documentary.
John's in the pub. He's going to watch on catch up. This programme, not the.
Right. Okay. I'll have a sherry.
Tim says his daughter loved it. She's got not the slightest interest in rugby league. Maybe she will have now.
But maybe
she wants to win the fixtures.
Maybe if he was to say to her, "There's a PDRL fixture on before a main game. Let's go and watch both," and then she becomes more imbued, even with Super League. It's a win-win, isn't it?
Well, that's why I was saying when we were talking about the double headers a few weeks ago. I don't understand why you'd invite two clubs in a different competition to you, run by a different governing body, rather than promote your own.
Well, unless you were going to film that first game because there's going to be some kind of championship coverage. But what I did think was interesting was that.
Did I say championship coverage?
Sorry. How I did it, Dylan?
It's going to be on Channel 4 and everything.
How do we grow PDRL when the names of the teams are allied to one governing body and the competition is run by another governing body, which brings us straight back to the women's game, where exactly the same happens, that there are teams going out there bearing the names and wearing the colours of Super League teams that we could really heavily market. What I would say is, watching sports personality, they missed the trick by getting other women's sports teams up that were actually in the audience, but it's clear that the growth of all sport at the moment hinges on the contribution of women's sport, and if we go back to our good friend at the darts, what impact has been made over the last 3 or 4 days by Fallon Sherrock's exploits?
I mean, we can't make that kind of star because we can't have men against
But
women.
what we can do is we can over promote the women's game, because at this stage it offers as much, if not more, than the men's game. But who's going to do that? Is it going to be Super League because it's Castleford against Warrington and that allies with the men's game, and that's how you'd want the fixtures to be double headers, or is it going to be the RFL who run the women's game? And we've said it all, well, ever since Robert Elston was employed, that as a sport, can we afford to have two different parts? And the argument back is only the RFL runs the sport. The Super League is a marketing organisation for its own sport. I think in practice there is an overduplication of a resource.
Martin says the new programme should have interviews like the one Stevie Ward did with Brian McDermott. Then it should be riveting.
Yes, I agree.
There's a personality you can promote.
The new captain of Leeds.
Yes, which is interesting.
Well, I think there were 2 or 3 candidates. Stevie is the longest serving player, and yes, there is a question mark by some people over his durability, but I think he was very important behind the scenes last year in part of the revival that they had, and he's been rewarded with captaincy. He is incredibly proud. He sees it as a massive honour.
I should dig that interview out I did with him after the grand final a few years ago, because it's one of the
2017 was one of the great, again, emotional pieces of television.
I'll cut the Radio Yorkshire logo off and no one will know. Not to mention it there. Never mind. Unfortunately, I don't think I flicked through the paper today. I don't think they've got they must have closed the voting off for the League Express Awards, because there's some absolute stinkers of people in those categories.
Well, no doubt that'll be announced next week.
I mean, I did vote online, because you could vote online and not give your name, so I was able to pass my judgment on things. But I know Leeds were back and everything, but Mitch Dagar Coach of the Year? And then that's not to take anything away from Mitch Dagar.
By saving a team.
Josh Drinkwater Scrum Half of the Year. Just put 3 names in the category. You don't have to put 4 in. You don't have to put 4. I thought they missed the trick with the retiring players and went up in Lewis in there. But that's my bias, isn't it, you see?
Yes. Who was just back from Brazil.
That's what I saw, yes, with the World Cup and everything.
Rugby League is taking on.
It's a thing now. Rugby League in Brazil.
They have named development squads for both men and women in Rugby League, in a nation that up until probably a year ago had never played the sport, which is why I personally think the international dimension should be at the head of everything we try and do to promote the sport.
The fascinating thing about the story last week about the new programme that's either going to be on Amazon or wherever it's going to be, is that someone from Super League fed the line that they weren't happy with the Super League show, and I thought that was fascinating, because obviously that is a remnant of the deal the RFL did for the TV rights, which ends soon. I wonder if that was either the Super League saying, as a kick up the backside for the producers of the Super League show, you need to up your game, or whether they just wanted it known that they're not happy with what goes on with it and they're willing to take the highlights programme somewhere else. And again, if they take it in-house and give it away for free, as one assumes the RFU do, I don't think there's no great loss in losing a programme that's on at 11 o'clock at night in the north only to go somewhere else.
I think there is a case for saying that you need a spread. You need to be across various different media platforms. Some of them are digital, some of them are free, some of them will be subscription. We're finding that in journalism at the moment, and people will. What you've got to do is create a wave, and I think too often it's been we've been stood on the shore, and it's been a dribble between the toes.
If you want to pay 20p to subscribe to this programme, please send us a cheque or postal order. Amazingly, we're still in the podcast charts, despite the fact we haven't done the podcast for 3 weeks. We're number 16th.
Nobody else has either.
Well, no, I mean, in fairness, this is my concern. This is why we're doing the show today anyway, because usually if a show doesn't go on for a week, that's it. They're done in Rugby League these days. So we have to feel like we had to come back.
We are 4020 light, but we do acknowledge.
They'll be back next year.
We will be back. The full version will be back. Nor did we want to go too big tonight on projections for next year, because I think that is the meat and drink of next year's programme. You asked for alternative awards, though.
Yes.
Didn't you? Did you get any?
Yes, from Sid. Well, I don't know if I can read them all now.
I can
This
imagine
was,
what they were.
This was because I was on Twitter yesterday and Danica tweeted something and I can't remember what it was now. But it seems so long ago. Betfred tweeted us earlier.
Did they?
They do.
Do they like
They
us?
have, well, they must do. Well, they can send us some money.
Well,
Or some hats
we
or
wouldn't have had the 4020 annual without their support.
There you go.
So.
The good people at Betfred. Must be careful what I say these days. Obviously, they don't pay me. Alternative awards, because obviously we are at the end of the season, at the end of the year. Sid says, services to Women's Rugby League, Gary Schofield. Sid.
Sid, don't open.
Worst abuse of refs, Eamon McManus. Most generous teams in the hands for donating 4 points to London. Yeah, but he stayed up, Sid. He stayed up. Manchester Hoteliers Award, Toronto Wolfpack. Stealing a Super League living, Huddersfield. Of course, that was Huddersfield again losing with Uncle Ken, the other Uncle Ken. Imagine if he had got him. Oh, it reminds me, well, politics, right? Not to talk about politics.
Sport and politics. Oil and water.
It's done now. It was all the election the other week. Might as well turn off.
Workington man.
Yeah, might as well turn off at about 10:05. They took an early lead but couldn't hold on. For the next 5 years, there's actually no point in all those people who've been winding people up on Twitter for the last 6 months doing anything, because the government can do whatever they want for the next 5 years. They could ban rugby league if they wanted,
Or make it a national sport.
because they've got the
Because
power.
they love the North. don't
Yeah, oh, they love the Northers, says Bozza.
they? Michael Gove, Rugby League World Cup.
Apparently, yeah.
Not looking forward to anything more in the entire term of this parliament.
Can't wait for him to get booed presenting the trophy. But okay, no. But this is where the all parliamentary rugby league people, who must be completely new now.
Well, yes, they'll have to re-elect.
I think my MP will be the longest serving member on there. They can actually do something now because they don't have to do anything else in the next 5 years, because whatever Boris says goes. Or Dominic. We're taking over from her off the telly next.
A little bit of satire.
Yeah. Oh. I saw someone punching someone outside. I say that, someone told me they saw someone punching someone. This is where they can now earn their corn by actually pushing the agenda of rugby league, because they've got nothing else better to do for the next 5 years.
As can Claire Balding.
She can. A controversial appointment
Wow.
in a role in which involves shaking hands with people and
Promoting the sport. It's an ambassadorial role in the truest sense of the word. She will be giving out the Challenge Cup, and she will be promoting the World Cup. I don't think that's a bad thing.
But she's not played the game. She's not.
To be fair, your and I record added together doesn't really count as playing the game.
I'm not sure. Do people actually know who any of the former presidents of the Rugby Football League were? I mean, they should have done
Or
this
what
as
they
a quiz.
did.
It's on the
It's
Rugby
a-
League
it's-
website.
You know, do we not think that Tony Adams has had an impact in elevating the profile of rugby league? Not every minute of every day.
But once you talked about football, so we're not in value for money.
But here is somebody that has a huge social media following, who has got us into newspapers. Who has made pronouncements on social media in support of rugby league. Do we not need that?
He gave an award to Reece Lynn. I saw it.
He gave an award to Reece Lynn.
For doing good work in the community.
So there you go.
And it got on the BBC website.
What's wrong with that?
I don't know what people want to do. We're negative. We're the negative program, aren't we?
Are we?
We're the negative one.
No, I think
I
really.
don't know what happened to the positive one, but we're the negative one. And we're criticised for things that we say on the programme. All from the perspective of wanting the betterment of the sport. Why are people criticising the appointment of Claire Balding or Tony Adams or whoever?
At a time when we will be renegotiating a television deal and that we're trying to elevate the sport in a World Cup year over here, because she's been appointed for 2 terms, what could be wrong with that? She's a champion of women's sport as well, and we're obviously going to have a Women's World Cup. She's a big fan of the disability side of sport.
Yeah.
She's going to be a champion of wheelchair World Cup. I think it's brilliant.
Someone said that she's just a professional TV person who pretended to like rugby league. Well, as we've known in the past,
she genuinely does like rugby league.
How many people are presenting rugby league on grandstand in the past who hated every second
She
of watching?
genuinely is and has been for a very long time, since she was a young girl, and her grandmother made her sit
I
down
love that quote
on a
as well,
Saturday
wasn't it?
afternoon and say, "Watch a proper sport, lass."
Yeah.
And that's true.
That does. Past presidents of the Rugby Football League. Ex-players have been the president in the past. Gary Henningson's been the president.
Kath
Did he-
Henningson's been the president.
Did he get us on the telly? Yeah, indeed. He
She
used to
was
be
the
people
first
from
one.
clubs, wasn't it? Maurice Lindsay,
Well,
Harry Jeps.
it was historically the person who'd been the longest representative on the Rugby League Council by rotation got to be president, and it was a reward for service. Now, I think the role has been made something more functional. Bearing in mind it is an honorary position and an ambassadorial position. So I don't see
We picked the wrong fights, don't we?
I don't see what's wrong with Claire. Bring it on.
NH28 says, I can taste the salt through the screen. Oh, is that my comments about the election? I don't know.
Salt tears, man.
Those ones that Alexander of Macedonia cried when he conquered all the worlds at
Wasn't that
26.
darts commentary?
Eric Bristow's 24. That's one of the great ones. Tim says, heard Jacob Rees-Mogg is a massive Broughton Rangers fan. There's one for the teenagers.
Yes.
They have a Latin motto, Broughton, don't they?
He
Broughton?
originally had a Manningham scarf, but traded it for Broughton.
I do Greyhound racing, and Bellevue comes up every time. Oh, Bellevue. Oh, where did they go? Oh, they're not there anymore. Tom Maguire mentioned. What happened to Tom Maguire?
Tom Maguire, there's a name from the past.
Enjoy Boxing Day, Tom. Ah, grandson, what a TV thing. Yes, it was. It should be the national anthem. If you sing God Save the Queen, it fits. And while the public has been on.
What?
Well, that's the end of the plan. Just give up now. It's the end of my career. Merry Christmas, Phil and Ross. But in French, obviously.
Joyeux Noël.
Right.
No, don't go.
So all the quotes I once said are non-broadcasted.
So was it a good year? Was 2019 a vintage year for Rugby League? Was it a holding year? Did we build up? Are we having the same conversation we had at the 2018 as the state of the game? Or?
2018 was a big year of flux for us.
What Wakefield was? Or
Us as a
Us,
programme, as a
alright.
thing.
Us. An entity.
Yeah, I tend to think, I look back at 2019 in kind of personal battles with things going on, and it was a very tiring year at
It's a
times.
long year.
A very long year.
It was a year of
And
endurance.
a lot of times just wanted to give up. Well, no, not that far. Just got sick of people. But then the game pulls you back in, doesn't it? And you go to things like the Challenge Cup final and the semi-finals at Bolton. Oh, by the way, speaking of the semi-finals at Bolton, and with it being a hot button topic at the minute, what happened to that racism thing at the semi-final?
It's topical now.
Yeah, we've led the way. Football's followed us on that one. And proof, of course, that having someone go, rugby league is a family game, and doing it in the football makes no difference. Because if people want to be racist, they'll be racist, whether there's a thing or not, because people are idiots, as we've said.
And we are people.
Yeah.
Therefore, we are also idiots.
The Challenge Cup semi-finals, highlighted by the women's final at the start. As you know, in this job we do, and I've been lucky to follow lots of different teams at times. Starting off with non-league football when I started, and in the last couple of years, watching a lot of women's rugby that I've never watched before, you develop emotional attachment to teams you've got no real attachment to. And I had that feeling with Leeds this year, and
Oh, past the bucket.
But
Did you just get an acid reflux in your throat?
the Challenge Cup final lesser, because I haven't seen most of it, but the grand final. It was,
Women's, we should.
yeah, it was a strange experience.
What, wanting someone in blue and amber to win?
Well, I would cast it like that because I'm neutral, aren't I? But I wasn't disappointed with the result.
I think we had some stories this year, and I think sport life revolves around a narrative, to quote Mr. Jamie Jones Buchanan. And obviously Salford was a great story that ended up at Old Trafford. London were a great story throughout the season because what was deemed to be predictable proved to be anything but. Toronto were a story, and again that playoff series, would they, won't they, was probably more exciting than the regular season when, like St Helens, Toronto didn't get enough credit for their week in week out performances because they were a step above everybody else in that division. I don't think Saints got the credit that they deserve, and there's an interview in the Forty20 annual out now with Kyle Amor saying that it doesn't bother the team because they've all got rings to wear at the end of it, and they can only be the best they can be, but they did win the competition by a record number of points. Not record number of points in Super League, in the entire 124 year history of the sport. And we did spend a lot of last season focusing on the scramble at the bottom rather than the excellence at the top. But I think the focus that St Helens got was actually brought to them by Salford getting to Old Trafford, and a lot more people were interested in how that would develop because suddenly, Saints had it all to prove again, and the underdog was who everyone else was supporting. So I think that was good. I thought there were elements of the international programme in the Southern Hemisphere that...
well, those elements that didn't involve Great Britain.
Yes. Yeah. So the rise of Tonga. I think Greece became a great story when they qualified for the World Cup on the basis of the fact that, if you're going to give an award for an alternative award, then the arsehole of the year goes to the Greek Pentathlon Association, who seem to claim some rights.
Not even modern pentathlon, it's old pentathlon.
But the fact that Greece defied all that, couldn't even play at home in their final World Cup qualifier, and still managed to get to the World Cup for the first time. I think Jamaica coming over and playing over here at the end of the season against England Knights was a very different experience for those of us that were there, apart from the fact that 7,000 was an excellent crowd. Just the whole feel around the game just hinted at maybe there are new audiences out there that we can try and attract, and that bodes well for the World Cup. So I think there were some diamonds along the way, but again we're having this same conversation a month away from the new season kicking off, that it does become a test of endurance, and it's not just for the players, it's for the fans as well, that you start at the end of January, you finish effectively mid-November. That's a long time. That is a long time to be following your sport.
The weeks after the grand final felt very long for this programme. Sadly, that's all in the past now. Wanting to win in the Challenge Cup, but again failing to win the grand final, even getting to the grand final this year. The resurgence of Wigan and then their slight drop off at the end. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens with Jackson Hastings next year, and Wigan all together as one bundle. He's the favourite to be the Man of Steel again next year.
I think the whole clubs are going to be interesting in 2020. They both have a point to prove. There wasn't an element of consistency in FC, and they've changed a lot of their players. Hull KR have had a wholesale clear out.
Which is always a danger, isn't it, if it doesn't all fit together.
So I think there's going to be a lot of interest in the east of the rugby league playing world as to how they cope with their changes, their decision to get rid of baby and bathwater. Could be for the better for both of them, but I think that will be interesting. But the fans of both of those clubs, I think, were ultimately disappointed at the end of 2019. So I think there's going to be an interest in seeing this division between the haves and the have-nots, which I think got wider in 2019. And what is the future for clubs now? We have reserve grades brought back. Does that weaken clubs in League One? Does it strengthen them? Does it give them an opportunity to have their own identity and maybe bring them through their own players without relying as much on loans and dual registration? Be interesting, but I do think 2019 was almost a holding year for the sport.
we'll see what manifesto Mr. Elston and his team come up with in a few weeks' time when we're at the Super League launch, and we're all excited about Sonny Bill Williams and Toronto. And
I think that same week the Championships and League One will launch. It'll be very interesting to compare the two.
World Cup draws the week before.
It's an iconic location.
Which we still don't know where it is.
Which can only be Odsal.
Odsal.
Don't mention Odsal. I'm in trouble, don't mention I mentioned Odsal once and didn't quite get away with it.
See how we capitalise on all these various things we've created in our sport. And see if Saints can continue to dominate with a new coach.
I think
big players in the
you talked about awards and nominees. I don't think it should be forgotten the fantastic job that Justin Holbrook has done at St Helens. And he, to me, deserves rewarding for that. I get Ian Watson overachieving with the Salford squad he had, and at the beginning of the year everybody was saying they did well to avoid relegation. Actually, they were unlucky not to win the whole thing. That is a magnificent achievement. But I don't think the spotlight should be taken off Justin Holbrook, who, when he came, Saints were in the doldrums, relatively speaking, and has produced a wonderful brand of rugby. They were almost untouchable at times last year. They were brilliant.
Do we have a more open championship? Yes, because we have no Toronto in there. But will Toulouse finally achieve their promotion? What does that mean to Super League with all these foreign teams in, especially the current climate?
Well, I reckon you've got a plan for that. In the same...
Will we get a TV deal in France?
Well, in the same breath, what is the plan with teams like New York and Ottawa? Can the game afford to have them in League One if they come in at all? Can League One afford to have them in League One?
I shouldn't say this, but if New York did sign Izzy for that, no interest at all.
Well, you're talking about one of the most cosmopolitan cities in the world with someone who is the least cosmopolitan person you could ever come across. So it doesn't fit. There is such a thing as bad publicity. Do not be associated with people who your organisation would be tainted with. I can't see Brad Fittler coaching in League One either, to be honest.
What will happen with Newcastle? They've obviously spent. They've obviously got players. They've got plans. They get missed out this year. Will they be able to achieve their promotion into the Championship with the money they've got behind them, the infrastructure?
Should we be over-encouraging them because they haven't invested? I don't know.
What happens? What happens to life below Super League come 2021? Because it's okay saying everyone should get the same amount of money. It doesn't work like that. Can they stand alone and get their own TV deal? Personally, I don't think they can, because that's not... People keep mentioning the quality of the product. The quality of the product is irrelevant. Second division football is not as good as the Premier League. But because lots of people are interested in second division football, or some of the teams involved, then it's got a TV deal.
Does the Scottish First Division have a TV deal?
It does, but I don't know how much the BBC pay for it to broadcast it in Gaelic. I assume it's not that much. Speedway.
I don't remember the last time I saw Falkirk live. That's
I always use ice hockey as an example. Their crowds are better than the Championship. They're on free sport. They're not making millions of pounds. We have to be realistic. We have to make the top product as good as it can be, because that will trickle down, potentially.
Should England go to Samoa mid-season when the fixtures are already out and play in the southern hemisphere?
They
yes,
can play someone, but who will release the players?
But again, well, I think if it's an officially sanctioned test match, clubs will have to release their players, or they won't be able to play on the same weekend as that test match. But more importantly, how can you do it that way around? Surely you announce the international fixtures first and build your domestic fixtures around them rather than the other way around. So.
It's good you've got a reserve for it, so they can fill in the spots. I wonder if that will harm the Heartlands clubs in League One more than the outliers, because they won't have to rely on people, the likes of West Wales or whatever, aren't relying on people from the north to fill their squads.
I suspect there will be an impact.
League One, the Championship, Women's Super League. LDRL, PDRL. It's Brian.
It's the hand of Brian.
Peter says Witness looking decent for next season. We've signed a lot of players.
Well, interesting to see how Tim Sheens goes, I think, as well, and pulling those players together. And that is a high caliber coach in the Championship. So yes, it will be very, very interesting to see how they go.
Matty Smith's not far away from when he was winning grand finals with Wigan. Interesting what he can do.
I think at that level of rugby league, he can be a real impact.
Oh, Cheekbones says it's the last show of the decade. But does the decade end now or next year? It's like the millennium thing, is it? When does the millennium
Last show of the decade, gosh.
What's happened in the last 10 years? Who were the champions 10 years ago? Probably Leeds. So no, they're not. Now Leeds are rubbish. So what will happen?
I think the interesting thing is the television deal. I don't think you can look much beyond that. That will determine the roadmap for the next few years. And if we get a similar sort of a deal, even if it's split properties amongst a range of different broadcasters, but the money is guaranteed for another, let's say, 5 or 6 years, sport can move forward. My only worry is what is the contingency if we get less?
Has anyone signed up for the England supporters club? So we get the cheap
they'll
tickets
all be doing it for Christmas, I'm sure.
Getting whatever you get free with it. Was it a hat or something?
Bobble hat. I don't know.
Or a badge or something.
A nice wallet to put your membership.
So everyone bought the tickets for the England-Australia Test Series coming up.
Well, I think it'd be nice to think that they will. They may not have bought them yet, but excited to be going to Tottenham. Looking forward to that.
Magic Weekend back in Newcastle.
Looking forward to that. I think if you're going to have a Magic Weekend, and there is still a debate about its value, that to have it in Newcastle is the right place to have it.
As Lawrence just mentioned, a pair of socks. I think that was the tickets, wasn't it? They were plugging those heavily on social media, the RFL. So I've got a big pile of England socks. We'll be getting those at the Championship Media launch. We're getting a pair of those socks.
Alan's got Betfred socks, didn't he?
Yeah, we've got Betfred socks before, yeah. You're thinking, no wonder everyone wants to be accredited by the RFL these days for the amount of, to quote our friend, was it swag, she said?
She did say swag.
Stash.
We'll get a pen that runs out a week after we get.
Oh, it's a Parker pen though. I think it's one they got from Michael Parkinson. It got binned off by the over 50s plan. Maybe they could sponsor Super League.
Who do we think has recruited the best?
I don't know any of these players from Australia. Hull have signed big, haven't they? They have signed big men.
They've got a big pack and a younger pack.
I think as we saw last year with the dropping down in the numbers of interchanges, I don't think it made too much of a difference, did it? Other than people carrying bigger benches than before. The days of the utility player who fills a million roles in the backs.
I think Salford have signed particularly well, considering that we were looking at who they'd lost and what an impact that would have. I think they've got a broader squad, but I think bringing in the likes of Luke Yates, who clearly performed it incredibly well last year. I think the other guys that they've got from London are proven Super League players of a standard. So I don't think we should rule out necessarily then their odds dropping from being grand finalists one year to seem to be probably mid-table next year.
Trying to find the fix. No one's really got involved to say how excited they are with the fixtures coming up. So it's a good job the
Boxing Day.
Yeah, it's a good job squads are announcing numbers, isn't it? Because all that's in the papers these days, the squad numbers, which I can't get too excited. I know people do get excited about them. I can't get that excited about.
Well, it's
Wellington Albert's gone to
Featherstone.
Is he called Albert Wellington or Wellington Albert? He's called Albert Wellington here in the paper.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, he's changed his name. I'm pretty sure it's Welly Albert. He's known as Welly.
Welly, that is his name.
We'll give it some Welly. We've got the traditional Wetherby Whaler festive challenge.
Well, I mean, they've moved into my village now as the Wetherby Whaler people.
Well, I hope you'll be supporting them because they're supporting Rugby League.
It's very controversial, these chip shops in my village. The fixtures aren't in the paper.
Well, it's Leeds Wakefield, 11:30. Nice.
Yeah, unfortunately I'm working.
Ready to fail.
Yeah, unfortunately I'm working, so I'll miss it. But
we've got Castleford against Bradford.
Yeah. I'm sure Warrington will play Witness at some point because they always do. I don't know. I understand why these games exist.
Yeah.
But I'd rather work. Obviously, I'd rather be watching rugby league, but financially, I'd rather work than watching rugby league. Maybe some constraint or something. I don't know.
Well, there's no fixtures on New Year's Day like there used to be.
Well, I will be if I ever get around to it. I found some programmes from around Christmas time, including Oldham versus Swinton, where it says there's an old saying around the watershedings: Christmas comes but once a year, as do Swinton. Which I don't know if that's still something they say. Well, obviously not the watershedding. I don't know if they were that excited by Swinton in 1967 or whatever.
When they were playing Christmas Day, Boxing Day, the 27th or 28th,
yes.
if it was a weekend, and New Year's Day.
Tottenham should be the Challenge Cup final stadium, says Chris. Wembley is too big for rugby league, and the Magic Weekend has had its day. Get rid and go back to home and away fixtures. Chris, send your CV to Rob Alston. The Victoria Quarter, Manchester.
I think there is a case for saying that we need to have a slightly different offer to sell to television in 2021. I don't think that. I understand why chairman and owners want a certain number of fixtures, but there does seem to be too long a season. We've mentioned it 150 times that somebody needs to be talking now about what it looks like, not next year, but going ahead with a new TV deal. I do think that we should already have announced that 2021 it would be a foreshortened domestic season to give us a chance to win the World Cup. And obviously you need to let fans know sooner rather than later, and if that became purely a home and away season, then I think that is something that we should have announced. And every club then is almost investing in the World Cup, because the World Cup will provide a return for all clubs if we get it right.
Warrington aren't playing Witness this year, and they didn't last year either.
No Cheshire Derby.
No. But we're going to play Warrington a million times, that'll be good.
Season starts and ends.
Peter says, are you happy with Waitfield's recruitment? Yeah.
I think
There's no reason why not to be.
I think they've got overall a stronger squad.
I didn't question
a
why.
lot of halfbacks. Have they been following? Did the memo come around from Wayne Bennett?
Someone got upset that we signed the player from Witness, whose name I've forgotten already. Young player, and we immediately sent him to Newcastle on loan. And people said, well, why don't you? Because you can do whatever you want. Wakefield obviously have a good that's it. Yeah. Brad Walker, yes, thank you. Wakefield have a good relationship with Newcastle. They sent players there in the last few years. They obviously see sending a player to Newcastle is more beneficial than having him at Witness. I don't know. People
And
get upset. They can do whatever they want with him, they are.
If Kyle Wood is fit, he's got a number 9 shirt.
Tim says, what happened to the Yorkshire Cup? The new one, not the old one of yore. Melted down for scrap. I don't know.
Was there a cup?
I think they wanted sponsored and everything, wasn't it? But it was a fake one. It wasn't the real Yorkshire Cup.
Where does it reside?
I assume it's locked up at Odsal along with everything else. Or is Odsal locked up? If it's not locked up, who's at Odsal and who's paying for them to be there?
Well, we could go and resurrect the Yorkshire Cup if there's somebody there.
Where's the show today? It's in the same place, just downstairs. Could have come in. The doors unlocked.
We thought we would give it a slightly different backdrop. And, in truth, the heater was on.
Yeah. Biscuits and everything.
Biscuits, mince pies, rugby league books.
Yes.
If it's not too late for Christmas, if you want to.
Go to your local bookshop tomorrow and buy books. Which would be the book you would choose to read?
Personally,
apart from the 4020 annual, of course.
I would read Mark Flanagan's The Invincibles. For people of a certain age who witnessed the 1982 Kangaroos revolutionise the sport, that is a really great account of who was in the team, but the impact that team had. It's not a chronology of the games that they played. It's what did international rugby look like before they came, and how did Great Britain try and catch up with them after they'd been. And if I could only have one, that would be my choice.
Australian Wally, not an Australian Wally, we're not talking about anyone in general. Reputed to be the world's best standoff, joined Wakefield Trinity for part of the 1983-84 season at a fee of £1,000 per match.
It was more than that.
But he had to leave in February 1984 with them heading for relegation from the First Division.
After he got sent off at Headingley on Boxing Day.
That was good, wasn't it? It's well worth the money. Vice captain of the Kangaroos 1982-83 Tour of Britain. While he's a delicatessen owner who enjoys scuba diving, skydiving and skiing. Not in season, I hope.
And now he's a Channel 9 sports presenter.
I don't know if you could go to Wakefield at the time. No skydiving. As we know, we're all northern mining towns, so that's what we learned from the TV during the election, is that no one realises that the north has changed in the past 30 years.
Rother Valley, there isn't even a mine.
Not any anywhere. People. That's why we need to change the perception of the north. Northern powerhouse. Might have some trains that run by the time the World Cup comes back in 2030, whatever. John Davison's in Australia. He's met someone in the Wakefield shirt. The brand is growing.
Hasn't he just been to Australia?
He's back.
Air miles.
Back again.
I hope, and we're not being in any way flippant, that John is safe from the horrible raging fires that are afflicting Australia's eastern seaboard and beyond. Which
doesn't seem to be, through our prism in this country, be reflected in. They can't play cricket because of the smoke, which is a bit. Not really necessarily how it works. Interesting to see how York.
I hope they've cancelled the firework display on New Year's Eve.
Well, that would be like on the news, don't they? On the town, they do all the nice fireworks around the world.
But have a schooner for me, Jim.
You'll be listening. I think people listen to us in Australia. Will Boris be doing the World Cup draw next month? Depends where it's. We don't know where it is. Could do. Not do. What's it got to do these days?
We're not doing politics. It's Christmas. Let's be charitable.
As long as it's not Richard Bacon, that's all that matters. I did watch the Challenge Cup draw, and then when Bentley got drawn out, my ears were burst through the noise of, I can't remember, to play the Army or the Navy or something.
One of the forces teams.
Will the 2025 World Cup happen, says Nick? It's not that far away, we still don't know where it'll be held.
Yes, it will happen, but we don't know where it'll be held.
The great thing is, there are at least two countries who could hold a World Cup in the drop of a hat, even if it wasn't. That's one advantage.
Expressions of interest, I believe it's called, have been asked for, and it isn't beyond the realms of possibility that it could still be a North American World Cup, but it clearly can't be the backers they originally had planned, and it may be a pared down version of what they had announced it was going to be, but you can imagine 4 Canadian stroke American cities putting on a pool each.
That little northeastern bit.
So it's not dead in the water, but yes, it'd be nice to see some movement on it.
We got through the 2000 World Cup. We can have another World Cup. We'll be able to take that much to our place. Sure, just turn up, book some stadiums, sell some T-shirts with the
Denver ball.
Yeah. Steve Pascoe got all of those.
Now a collector's item.
That's what he keeps saying.
Steve's in Australia.
We'll be finding more international countries to get kits for to sell. New.
Yeah.
We do.
Nigeria had its grand final.
Yes. Lagos won, didn't they? Lagos Haven, that is.
Nah, but then they played Kano somebody or other,
I've got the results from
Kano won. So I think it was the Southwest champions that beat the capital champions.
I'm a week behind on everything, so excuse me, because obviously we weren't here last week. I do have some messages. Let me go back.
But hello Nigeria and welcome to the party.
The Kano Gazelles beat Lagos Haven 18-12 in the national final.
Should make an overture.
In Kenya, the Nihuru Crusaders beat the Nakuru Chargers 30 points to 12. The Egerton Hawks beat Lakapia Eagles 30-0. And the Charger Academy, we've got an academy team, beat the Gilgil Pioneers 24-6.
So it's happening.
Kenya. Can't have any growth, we don't.
Libya.
Something like
Libya have got observer status of the Rugby European Federation. Libya.
I don't know much about Libya. Another fellow used to run.
It's
He's
good,
not
though.
there anymore. Yeah. Can only be good.
Training's been difficult for the last 2 years because bombs have been going off in the vicinity.
People are very upset. I know some people are very upset that Brazil are in the Women's World Cup at the expense of Fiji.
But what we shouldn't forget is Chile were part of the men's qualifiers in that America's Confederation. I think you'll find that when early next year things like the European Championship and the South American Championship are announced to run alongside the Oceania Championship that started this year, that Chile will again be involved, and that's great, isn't it?
It is, as we keep saying, and it goes back to any sport that isn't football, because the Man United versus Liverpool or whatever will carry on and carry some interest from around the world because people know these two teams. But talk about the International Rugby Union. People will watch it. All the pubs in a couple of weeks' time will have their come watch the Six Nations here. You don't know any of the rules or any of the players, but it's an excuse to drink Guinness. And people will go in the pub and it'll be on in the background and they'll watch it. But if they said, come and watch Leicester versus Saracens, they'll go, nah. And it's the same for us. We like watching Wigan versus what? I don't know, we don't like watching Wigan versus what to do because we've seen it a million times. We like watching two teams of random people from the north. But the rest of the country aren't interested. Yet Great Britain, England, Wales, Scotland, they don't know how good they are. They might buy into it because it's international sport.
100%.
Come the spring, I guarantee there'll be lots of coverage about ice hockey because Great Britain, for the first time in 25 years, will be playing in the top division of the World Championships, I think. So there's a genuine sort of get to play against someone any good and get stuffed by them.
Davis Cup tennis.
Yeah, and we're only a one-man team in that.
And he wasn't even playing.
No. Sandy Murray like tennis. Like rugby league.
We can but ask.
Yes, he's not. Nines will bring more countries in universities into rugby league, says NH28. A lot of people like Nines. Hire the Huns to promote it. They're busy. The one thing that has been shown this week, and I think you can't compare apples and oranges because we can't have a Fallon Sherratt turn up in rugby league. But they have there created, from nothing, because people don't watch the other darts, they've created a superstar. She had to win a match.
Well, she has created it herself, but they have exploited it.
They've opened the, given the what does he always say? Opportunity. Where is the opportunity for our people to make a name for themselves? Because we're the best way in the world. We spent a lot of time at the start of the programme talking about someone like Rob Burrow. Great player. We all have heard of him. The sad reality is, a lot of them have only just heard of him for sad reasons. People came up to me at work saying, oh, I've heard about this. How do we get these people to break through?
Well, even to the extent that when she won her latest dart extravaganza,
yeah, against the 11th best player in the world,
she was posed in front of the crowd. So a media manager actually went out there and said, we want you to stand like this. This is the image we want to send around the world. And that image suddenly started appearing all over social media. It was a brilliant picture. With her arms wide open, embracing with the crowd behind her. And all of a sudden, you couldn't move without seeing that picture of unbridled joy on her face, but almost like that open embrace. Come and enjoy darts. Look when I'm playing again next, and follow my journey. And again, that didn't happen by accident. That was somebody staging that picture and taking advantage of that moment.
And she'll be playing again in a couple of weeks' time in a different tournament, and there'll be no one there. The thing we can learn from the Herns more than anything is selling the product. Yes. I know it's completely different, and people get upset because the crowd boo at the darts or whatever. The fact is, they sell out. I think it was last Tuesday afternoon session at the darts. There was absolutely no names playing at all, and there were thousands of people there. They don't know any of these people are. They don't. People say they're not proper darts fans. They're paying however much pounds it is to go there and not watch darts.
I think.
How do we get people to pay? We don't pay to watch. We don't want to pay to watch what we love.
We'd like to have some non-rugby league fans paying to go and watch rugby league.
Where do we find those people? How do we sell rugby league
You
to
make it
people?
an event. There has to be a scarcity value around it. You cannot play so often the same opponents and expect people who aren't avid followers of those teams to turn up.
Have faith in the World
Make
Cup.
it
people.
special. The grand final was special because people who wouldn't normally have, with the greatest respect, had been another Saints Wigan grand final, we'd have loved it. It would have been a great game. There'd have been that element of derby around it, which we would have understood. As soon as you stick Salford in there, media organisations are ringing up going, who's this Salford? We've never heard of them, or we didn't expect them to be there. Is this a romantic fairy tale type of story? Tell us the story. And all of a sudden more people get to the final, more people. But I think it was a record viewing of the Sky coverage for a grand final. Brilliant. Why did people want to watch it who wouldn't normally watch rugby league? A, because it was an international weekend of football. Brilliant. But the other thing was, there was somebody to support.
Nick says, why aren't people watching rugby league if it's such a good product? That is a good question, Nick.
Because it's not sold to them enough, and the people that watch rugby league are those of us that have always watched rugby league, and it's a dwindling fan base. If you look round most of the stadia on any given weekend, there is an age factor attached to those that are watching it, and there was with darts. But what they've managed to get is those who are interested in sport per se and an event in particular, along and investing in. Maybe it's only one game a year. Maybe it's 2 or 3 series of games. But that's how I think you've got to attract. The one thing we've always had, is a saleable product. One thing we've not been able to do is sell it very well.
The people can't see that Jaffa cake, it's speaking to me. I think this is where it goes back to the point about people saying, oh, the championship's a good product or whatever. It doesn't matter. Because it doesn't matter how good the product is, it's how you sell that product.
Yeah. It's creating the stories, the venues that product is played at. You know, why did 33,000 people turn up and set a crowd record at Barcelona this year? One of the highlights of the 2019 season. Because suddenly it was beyond just a Wigan Catalan fixture. It was where it was played. It appealed to people who perhaps weren't Wigan and Catalan fans, particularly in that part of the world, who maybe had never come across rugby league before. What have we failed to do as a sport? Capitalise on it. We're not, as far as we know, there is no plan at the moment to play a fixture in 2020 in Barcelona. So what we've done is we've got the product, we've created the event, we've got people to the event, we've got people waxing eloquently about how much they've enjoyed the event, and then we've said, when are we going to see you again? Don't know.
Chris says, rugby league is the only sport that just can't seem to get its promotion right. Football, rugby union, cricket, boxing, Formula 1, darts, snooker, MMA, even netball and hockey seem to nail it, but not rugby league. Too many dinosaurs.
I think there are issues with those other sports as well. I'm not 100% sure that...
I thought something had broken. I thought Brian was looking at the camera.
It's like watching the Addams Family. This hand just came up. The thing was on the other end of it. I think it's more to do with creating events, and we haven't quite buttoned that down yet. We still there is a feeling, I think, with it, even if it's an unconscious thing, within too many clubs of saying, build it and they will come, and that because they've always come, there'll be supporters that will come to our ground and watch us play our nearest and dearest and local rivals, and it doesn't work like that anymore. You have to be clever around strategic marketing of events. You can't do that if you're playing the same team 3 or 4 times a year.
People don't like it when I talk about darts, and they're right, it is comparing apples and oranges because it's a completely different sport, but the players are built from the same social stock as the players we have.
Yes.
And somehow they make them into personalities, and that's what we have.
And not everything is right with the
perception.
darts. You know, there are people that go to the darts purely to get drunk and get leery, and it upsets and annoys some other people. But what they have done is they've taken a sport that had an image and turned it into a sport that has a completely different image, that is now touring around the nation on a weekly basis and getting a lot of people who who never supported it, to go and spend their money and enjoy the event. Now, they may not end up at the O2 at the end of the season to see who's crowned the champion of the darts Premier League. They may not get people who at this time of year will drive down to the Ali Pali and watch the early rounds. That may still be predominantly a darts aficionado audience, or it may well be people that live predominantly around the venue. But what they have done is created a sport whereby even if you tell me Fallon Sherrock's playing tonight, I'll go home and want to watch that, because you've created something of interest. And if you were to say she's coming to an event not far from you sometime next year, I might be tempted to buy a ticket now to go and see her. I may not become an aficionado of darts per se. I may not need to. I'm prepared to invest in the sport.
We must go and get some tickets for the Premier League. If you pay the money to get the right people in, it will work. Build it and they will come, says Chris. And then mentions someone who rugby league who might not be the right person for him. This is not to say that rugby league is run badly in terms of the media side, because it's not. But my experience in having worked backstage at the darts is they're very good and they know
what's different is clearly you're dealing with individuals.
Yes.
It's much easier to demand of individuals what part of their contract involves media responsibility, selling the sport, all that kind of thing. It's harder with a team. Get that, absolutely get that. But what darts has done that we could learn from is they have got a strategy of how to jump on the back of an opportunity and promote. And I'm not sure we have.
If I were somewhere now, coming up to the new season, I would be asking all the players, who among you wants to be some kind of media personality? Because what we will do is we will take you away, we will train you, but not within an inch of your life so you just come on TV and say big words, because we know you're not a real person then, and you know which people I'm talking about there. But we will cultivate your personality, we will put you in position, we'll put you down on Sky Sports News. Yeah, you might have to take a 2-hour train journey to be on telly for 5 minutes, but you will see the benefits of it and we will see the benefits of it. But we need to find the right people, because not everyone can do it, and that's fine. How many years have I been going to Wakefield press conferences? Some people are very good at speaking, some aren't, but that's not their job necessarily. So you get the right people in, then we find those people and we make them into personalities. One of the best things the PDC has is the fact they've got a very good presenter in Dan Dawson.
Yes.
He's very, very good at doing his job, and I'm not sure that we as a sport internally, as in at the Rugby Football League or Super League, have that person.
I think also we lack confidence. I don't think that we've ever wanted to stand up and shout about our product and find people that will do that, because I think there is something in our DNA that also includes an element of self-deprecation and deference. I think darts is quite brash in the way it approaches the media, and I think that is a reflection of the Hearns. I think they do it in their boxing as well, and with their boxers. And I think they are prepared to make statements in the knowledge that it might come back and bite them. But if you don't make that sort of statement, you're not going to be heard above the white noise of everybody else. And too often we're saying, we know our place, and now let's do some real shouting in 2020 about this sport, and let's not be afraid to put us up against anyone and everyone else. But you've got to really have the right sort of presenters to be able to do that, and the right sort of players.
One of the reasons people watch this programme, we know why they watch it, is because they know Scott's going to come and say something stupid or ridiculous, and they're going to go, why is he saying this? And sometimes he's proven right, but we don't have that many people.
It's about
Sandy's not his what jumper I'm wearing. I thought it'd take her a while to make it.
It's about creating a relationship with the audience, and I think there are various different ways of doing that. But what we have got, I think, is something that we have got a range of extremely athletic and much admired young men who can sell this sport. Now, I don't think we've invested in it.
We've got some young women as well, but we haven't.
Well, I think that the women's
but the core
game,
product is the men's game.
The women's game is the most exciting part of the game at the moment. And I think, you know, we need to bottom out what we want from the women's game in terms of the quality of it and where we're going to see it, and the personalities are already there, and we can do that. But I do think you take somebody, for example, closer to the heart of the team that you support. Tom Johnson's been out for most of last season.
Yeah.
Tom Johnson is a great talker. Tom Johnson's background is not what you would expect an archetypal rugby league player to be. He's, you know, his father was in the military. He was born in Germany. He's an eloquent kid. He's been out of the game for a while. While he's been rehabbing, we could have been turning him into a media star in terms of his training, so that when he gets back to playing, Tom Johnson is one of the names and faces that we keep going back to. And so, what's happening at Wakefield, Tom? And how's it going this year? And what do you think about Super League in general? Is it harder, do you think? What have you missed in all the time that you've been out? And you know, how quickly will it take to get up to the speed of the game? Because your USP was how quick you were. And let's talk about the international game, because if you can get back to full fitness and the try scoring you were getting at, then you're going to be in the England team that's going to be playing Australia at Tottenham later in the year, and England will be building a World Cup around people like you. You know, you don't start that on the day that he plays for England against Australia at Tottenham. You start that now, and you train him before now, and you identify other people like him. I mean, you know, Tommy Makinson won the Golden Boot with some astonishing performances for England against New Zealand, and we never heard from him again. But
don't open that.
No, but Tommy is a really good guy. You know, and even people like Louis McCarthy Scarsbrook, who is not what you would expect. Earl Crabtree is a wasted opportunity in rugby league, because Earl looked and sounded different. Now, as soon as Earl finished, to me, some media training, and he's already...
Well, he was on our show on TalkSport too, wasn't he? He was brilliant on there, because he's honest.
And he gives an impression of the sport that people who still think it's muddied oaths with Eddie Waring's commentary over the top of it would say, oh wow, you know, this guy looks different, sounds different, is projecting something to the... He's got a gin that named after him. All of that is how I think we should be promoting the sport.
People don't know this. I should weave this into an article. Big Daddy, obviously, former Bradford Northern Reserve. What happened to him? He is a controversial figure in... there's a publication called the Wrestling Observer, which is the wisdom of professional wrestling. Which, you know, professional wrestling is what it is. Rich Holland's doing well, by the way. Apparently. I might review him. A Big Dan is this controversial figure, because obviously as a wrestler, he's a big fat bloke, which balance people off, all the little people did the work. But there's a Hall of Fame, and he's on the ballot every year, because he obviously was a famous person. But he doesn't get in, because he wasn't very good at what he did. But he was a big star. So the big debate is, should he go in or not? He's getting closer every year, but then he slips back a bit, so he might get in the Hall of Fame this year.
So is a Bradford Reserve?
Bradford Northern Reserve, didn't he? I thought that was the...
No, that was Nigel Wood, I think. I can see why you get the two mixed. Edit that bit out. I'm in enough trouble.
You might get the whole thing, won't get the whole thing.
But that's, I think, how we promote the sport. You've got to be clever. You can't wait for things to happen. You are then totally reactive. We have got to be proactive. And we've got to decide who our personalities can be. We've got to offer them the training that they need to be those personalities, and then we've got to use them. You know, whether you like somebody like John Wilkin or not, I think there is the germination there of a real media career. Somebody who talks really well about the game, who thinks beyond, you know, just a performance on any given day, is coming towards the retiring end of his career. You know, all people like that we need to work with, because they are who I want people to think, it's not just guys that beat 7 bells out of each other. Stevie Ward is another classic example of someone who the work they've done away from the game makes them a much more rounded and interesting figure. Talks well, got a world view that is beyond just rugby league, but has a narrative behind it. Well, you know, could be the captain of England in the 2021 World Cup.
I completely buy into Scully's theory on the level of people they have on TV in terms of their standing within the game. Because obviously you look at the Australian broadcasters, it's the Wally Lewis, Lockyer, Johns, and the players of those eras aren't necessarily the ones. Well, Scully's the obvious example. He's not on BBC One, he's not on Sky, and players of his ilk. But I also see, and one of the best commentators out there, and we don't hear him enough these days because we don't have a radio station anymore, is Craig Murdoch, who was obviously a very fine player, but not a player of the level of Scully, but he can call a game and read a game, and that's where we need to find those players who the career's short, we don't know it's going to end, who could possibly do that in the future. Because as we seen with Sky, Eddie Hemmings leaves midway through a season, and they didn't have a plan. There's opportunity. We need it. He's got a job at the International Rugby League Federation.
But he's not going to be on our terms.
No, how are we going to cope?
He's not going to tell us why it should have been a penalty. And
Where's all those other referees of his... where's Russell Smith these days? Where's Bob Cotton?
Just didn't need it. Robin Whitfield. He's in your book.
Don't mention Robin Whitfield.
He might have been playing in 83, 84. Who's who? I'm going to have a look.
Go have a look. How he gave that try, I don't know. So why are you head from Northern? That's why you're
Colin Whitfield. Fred Whitfield. But not Ronnie.
No, not made the book. Graham has mentioned...
Ronnie Wildman. One of the dirtiest suckers I ever saw. Didn't realise he was born in Barnsley. That would explain it. Sorry, Barnsley.
Not a hotbed of rugby league. No, Graham's mentioned Castlewood's new stadium. I don't think it's fair, and people do this. I don't think it's fair to hit the likes of Castleford over the head with the stadium thing in terms of it not being built, because there, but for the grace of God, go most of the teams in Super League have relied on external factors getting their stadiums built, which aren't necessarily available at the minute for many various reasons.
Castleford know that they need to get that stadium built for the income generation it will give them to secure their long-term future. The fact that it hasn't been is whilst I think there has been the requisite amount of retail now to perhaps move to the position where it can be built, the whole climate, with culminating with the latest election that we've had, has been too volatile for stuff like that. And maybe over the next few years it can be built, but the longer it isn't built, the harder it is for Castleford to compete with other clubs that have 24/7, 365-day usage of their facilities and are earning money outside of their rugby income.
We need a video game. We need a rugby league video game that's on apps and stuff that people buy into. That's what it could be.
Does the sport pay for that?
Probably.
Well, there you go. You see, again, should that not be part of their media strategy?
So what's really popular on well, it shouldn't be really popular because I see them advertised all the time. Trading card games on phones. People like collecting things. I've got a house full of crap I need to get rid of. Trying on eBay. People like collecting things. Why? No one buys things anymore physically. Sticker books, I guess, football sort of thing. There was that Super League sticker book a while ago. The Merlin trading cards. Laurie Daly for Wakefield. Yeah, but someone can't be beyond the rounds of best. We can have some kind of Super League trading card app game. I've just come up with this idea now. I don't know how feasible it is. Could be a thing. People could buy into it. They swap Stevie Ward for somebody else. Danny Kerman. And they train them up and have kind of fights. I don't know how you play it. I don't know, it must be an NFL game we could rip off or something. Well, just try different things to try and make people into celebrities. People haven't got the jumper. It's Christmas.
There's definitely a Christmas tree on it.
Yeah. Tell you what, I mentioned ice hockey earlier. Remember we used to take the Mickey out of Leeds having 4 kits in the season? Sheffield Steelers this year, they've got 3: home, away, cup shirt, because they have a separate copy in ISO. They had a shirt for Halloween,
Of course.
shirt for Remembrance Sunday, which was the the right year on it as opposed to Castleton's. Sorry. They've got 3 different Christmas shirts.
Do they play over Christmas?
Yeah.
Oh.
Playing Boxing Day against Manchester. They'll have one for Valentine's Day, and then they'll probably have a playoff shirt. I think there'll be 10 shirts this season. 60 odd quid a
But do they sell in sufficient number?
They must think people buy it. No, it says Castles and Wakefield stadiums are just fairy tales. No.
I think they're very different beasts, aren't they? Wakefield is a renovation and Castleford is a new build,
Yeah.
so there are different imperatives.
Tim says, will Scully ever get his 50th cap or whatever it is? Could Phil start a campaign? I think we started a campaign only 2 years ago. No one's listened to us yet.
I think if we, if going back to the, what can we do for Rob Burrow, that is more than just a donation to a funding site. If this game does happen, the Doddy Weir Legends against the Rob Burrow Legends, and it's half league and half union, and it's played at, say, Murrayfield or possibly even Emerald Headingley, Scully play. We'll give them a
I
cap.
think it's great
50th cap.
against the rest of the world. It's a real country.
We'll train him up.
Used to coach Rugby Union. Tells you he had a good record. Huh?
The only slight
It's like
problem
a
is,
proto Andy Farrell.
the only slight problem he's got is with the vision at the moment.
Yeah.
His awareness is fine.
Proto
He's getting
Andy
better,
Farrell.
don't we?
Yeah. He'll be back. Still writing.
Still writing.
Hashtag Scully for 50. Well, when the next... the Hall of Fame last year. Does anyone outside of Rugby League know it exists? Did we make it a big event?
We didn't have a dinner this year.
No,
and
so
in
is it,
anybody.
so when the Hall of Fame comes around next time, which might be next year because England are playing over here again, anyone who goes in next year will have done nothing to change their legacy to have not gone in this year. So why not hold a thing anyway? Unless we are just having it as a very, very exclusive club. But eventually it won't become, because someone will eventually go in who people will say, why are they in? Because that always happens. Greg says, I had the Super League 97 sticker book, got more signed in the book. The PSG lads who were made up with them and went to the shop to buy a book to get themselves a sticker in his sticker book.
Well, there you go.
Can
You've
make it
already
different?
thought of something appealing to a younger audience.
Cards.
But I think you've still got to make people personalities, and then the sticker book comes on the back of it. Because if you put it out, then they don't know who Tom Johnson is.
No. Well, it's 3 Tom Johnsons for 1 Ash Handley. I think that's the going rate. I think it is. That's what.
Ash Hanley's sticker goes halfway around the world and comes back to you. That's the only thing.
Good old Wayne Bennett. That was part of. I'm not going to talk about that story. But part of it was that they don't know when he's going to. The RFL know what they're doing with the England team and the England setup.
The longer it goes on, the more difficult it is to change it. Sure.
Just, do you think people are going to be upset if they say, yeah, you're staying? Well, just tell us. Don't change anything. Scott will still write his column next week going, oh, rubbish. Where's everyone else? YouTube and social media is massive, says NH28. Boxing through channels like AFL TV have been massive in the growth of matchroom boxing, and football fan channels are massive with kids and younger people. Arsenal fan TV. They were singing about them, weren't they?
There was a debate, wasn't there?
Yeah, with Simon Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the old Talk Sport, yeah.
Made me wanted to watch Arsenal TV and not listen to Simon Jordan. It was a valuable debate.
It's an interesting...
It was one of those things that actually that was on live on the radio when I was in the car. You couldn't turn it off.
Well, this is the thing now, and anyone can just pitch up with an old phone on a tripod and become broadcasters.
But
Regardless, exactly whether you've done a degree in it or not. I did my degree in 2002. May as well not bother.
Right, no.
I know.
Look at that, you've turned it straight.
Man of Steel, Young Player of the Year, 1982-83. Since turning professional on his 17th birthday, Brian has made a dramatic rise and captained Great Britain in the second test against France at Headingley in February 1984. Noble began with the Bradford Schools 13. He joined West Yorkshire Police Force and played with their Colts team as well as Bradford Northern Colts and Great Britain Colts. Bring back the Colts. They're all in here. Steve Norton.
He was good.
1984. There's a re.
See again, it wouldn't do any harm to reissue a Who's Who in Rugby League for 2020, and then at least, yes, I know we'd be the only people that would buy it, but if you don't put stuff out there telling people who the players are, how do they know who the players are?
It's my job to Terry Crooks in this.
Lee Crooks.
Yeah, there he is.
Is he getting sent off?
Looks like he's just kicked the ball. Lee was unfortunate not to have won the Man of the Match award in the 1982 Premiership final against Widnes. When he might have been on the losing side, he scored 1 try and kicked 2 goals and a drop goal. Does that get you kick some goals when goals meant something. I feel we're running out of steam. I think we're coming towards the end of this.
Well, I think we should thank everybody for their support over 2019.
I think as a kind of...
I'm still staggered with the number of people that are interested in what we say and do, and I'm grateful for that massively.
As I kind of insinuated earlier, I don't think it's been a difficult year doing this, and there have been many challenges. But you know what? The competition keeps lining up, and we keep seeing them off, and that's why we keep going. Because for some reason, I've grown attached to this program over the past 5 years or whatever. Just keep going. Start again next year. Next week there'll be the best of program, which I've got to edit down because currently it's running at 4 hours.
Well, I don't know what that says. I don't know how you've defined best.
Well, I think I'll just cut all the bits where we just said new beginnings didn't work. Yeah.
Rubbish!
There'll be lots of going in there. And,
getting stuff wrong.
Some of our special guests will be on there. I think everyone loved it when Romeo was on.
Romeo was fantastic.
I mean, basically, I've just I've just cut all the bits that are already on YouTube and Facebook. Just putting them all on again in the program. I'll have to put it on YouTube. It's good to see. But yeah, we do appreciate you all for listening. Go buy the magazine because
there's stuff in it.
Yeah. Give a 25-year-old YouTuber 50 grand and he'll drum up more publicity for the sport than the entire RFL, Sky and BBC, says on H28. Give us 50 grand.
We'll do it.
50 grand? Do you know how much people get paid in Rugby League? 50 grand come from? Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Brian's told us to say that.
Focus now. So yeah, we will be back next year. We can't not be. We got through the thing after the grand final. And we're all back.
We'll be here.
We will. I've got to go around now and turn it off, haven't I? Because Brian can't, because he's got a black book, he can't turn phones off.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
I hope the festive season brings you all that you desire. And for men of a certain age, that is socks. Because if there wasn't Christmas, we wouldn't have any. And,
well, I'm still hoping we get some from the RFL, come the media thing.
If you're going to a game on Boxing Day, enjoy it. And if you've got your season tickets for 2020, I hope it's a vintage season.
Otherwise, there's no other podcast, is there? They can't listen to anything else.
Otherwise, thank you.
Thanks for the biscuits, Sid.
Bottom of our heart.
And if you want to send us any food, the address is on the website somewhere. Good night, Facebook. I think that's Facebook. Good night, YouTube. You were always our favourites.